How's it going, everyone? I finally got around to finishing up this video about the Pyro update. It has been a while and I wanted to give myself plenty of time to experience the game in its new form before I gave a bit of an opinion on it. Fortunately, I have had the past week off work, so that was 7 days for me being able to just indulge myself in TF2 and experience the Pyro update, or should I say the Jungle Inferno update, for all that it was worth. I don't really want to make a massively long video where I drone on about all the different things. I'm going to try and keep this as quick and cheerful as I can. I do apologise if I do ramble on. We're going to try and go through things, and I do feel there's 5 different things I do want to talk about in this update. I felt there was kind of 5 major things. First off, we have the new maps, we have the contracts, we have the new weapons, we have the weapon skins, and finally we have the balances. Okay, and I'm going to start off by talking about the maps. Now, there were 5-6 new maps that were added in this game. I found it difficult because I often just ticked all of the boxes on the Jungle Inferno, and I didn't actually get to play Enclosure for a long time. And you know, it was a payload map. It kind of drifted to the back of my mind. It was very long. It reminded me of kind of a claustrophobic Swiftwater in the fact that it had a very long start to finish. There was different stages, and it just kind of, I don't know, I didn't really get a feel for it. I didn't really kind of understand it because the amount of times that I played through it, there was really never an understanding of the different points. I like my payload quite vanilla. One stage, not too open, not too tight, kind of like Bad Water and Upward. Those are the classics. And in general, the different stages made the flow a bit disruptive for me. But I do think the reason it was released with this update was it's kind of ideal for Pyro gameplay, with all the corners and all the places to hide. Very good for the flank opportunities, and obviously the Pyro is the key focus of this update, so I can kind of understand why it was released there. We have Banana Bay, which was a payload race, and I just have to say I hate payload race. Banana Bay is no different, and there's a lot of reasons. It's just the layout of the map needs to be a specific way due to it being payload race. The fact that the ending point of your cart, where you have to finish, is the spawn for the enemy team, and it's able for them to just defend it so easily. The amount of times I've had the cart nearly pushed, and you just have to wait for that train to come along, and someone comes out the spawn, and a demo comes out with a crit sticky, and bam, you know, you're dead, and then you have to wait for the train to come again, and it's it drones on. It drones on. The fact is, the round will never end unless someone caps, and it's kind of annoying for the contracts. You have to wait for the round to end to complete your contract. You could have finished your contract half an hour ago. If the map's not finished, you can't move on. So pretty much Banana Bay looks very pretty, but it's the fact that it's payload race, and it's not really one of my favourite game modes. We have Mercenary Park as well, which is kind of renamed it CP Last Point, because the first 2 points are really fun. There's some nice angles, there's high ground, there's low ground, there's flanks, there's different areas for you to go, but against a good team, last is pretty much unpushable. There's only 2 choke points, and they're easily spammed. There's one on the floor, and then there's one that goes up the top, and as long as you separate your team into 2 areas, it's quite easy, and you don't even really need to do that because of how close the spawn is to where the point is. It's very easy for you just to respawn and spam the choke point at the top, or just spam the point where they're capping. It reminds me a lot of the original Payload Barn Blitz, the snowy version. The comp version has a lot of changes, but the original version, again, only had 2 chokes that were easily spammed, and it made it very, very difficult for people to push, and often, even in comp, in competitive Highlander, teams would never actually push the last point. It was a case of who would, capture the 3rd point quickest. We've also got Moss Rock, an attack defense map, and I actually played this before. It's around 3 years ago. It was a pre-season cup in ETF2L, and back then the map was known as Keikoku, and it wasn't very good for comp. It was too open, too long sightlines, and it just didn't really work out for Highland. But for a pub, I've actually found it pretty fun, because attack defense is actually quite a nice game mode for me. I think. I like it. It's good fun. It gives you an objective to aim to, and you're either attacking or you're defending. Kind of like payload. I like that as well. And attack defense in kind of an open map like this is pretty fun. You've got 12v12 in a pub, and it actually works out pretty well. And I actually quite liked it, and the sight lines are still there. You still can get sniped from across the map, but in general, the map was actually a pretty enjoyable experience. The last two maps were Brazil and Lazarus. I put these two together because they're probably my favourites. Left the best till last. Most likely due to the fact that I like King of the Hill as a game mode quite a lot. It just allows you to jump into a server and you just got to frag. There's one point, you got to keep control of it, and if you've got any control, you just kill everybody else. I know Brazil has been played before. I think it was in 4v4 in UGC, I believe. So there are some kind of competitive aspects there. And they're quite open maps. They allow for some flanks. The midpoints are pretty decent. There's different angles for you to approach. Lazarus is quite interesting in the fact that both teams can access it from the top and from the bottom. I quite liked it. I don't know whether that's more because it was a King of the Hill map, both of them, but I actually felt I enjoyed playing on those maps the most. And overall, I think all of the maps fit into the jungle Inferno theme really well. The aesthetics are really pleasing. It looks like they actually come in a map pack. It's like you buy a map pack on Call of Duty or something. This was the Jungle Inferno map pack that you got for TF2, and it was all just really nice. It was something new. I was kind of disappointed there was no overgrown upward. There was a video I made on it a while ago, and it could have been thrown in there. I suppose it's just a remake of a current map, so maybe that's not why. But back on point, while these maps were kind of fun for the update, I don't think I'd come back and be desperate to play any of them. None of them jumped out at me and I thought, oh wow, this is the best map since Badwater. You know, give it a month or two and I think I'll be just head back to playing the classics like Badwater, Upward, Badlands and stuff like that. Onto the contracts, and the menu overall, the actual main menu for TF2 is up to date. It's really fancy now. It's more in line with the kind of things you see these days in CSGO and other games like that, and the contractor is part of that. And in general, the contracts, there's been a lot of content. You kind of go into the game and it's not just let's play the game. You've actually got kind of an objective. You've got an aim to actually play the game now. The Pyro Contracts was one pack to try and get all the new Pyro items. Then you had the Mercenary Park set, which allowed you to get sort of the blood money tokens and get the new skins and stuff like that. And then later on, they've added the Scream Fortress pack, which has all of the Halloween stuff as well. So there's plenty of content to keep you going. But unfortunately, a lot of them have been quite frustrating. The Thermal Thruster one, for example, it didn't really suit the weapon's use, in my opinion. You want to use the thermal thruster to be maneuverable. We'll talk about that later, but the contract wanted you to extinguish teammates and launch yourself into enemies. It's kind of not what people would probably want to use it for. It just kind of seemed counterintuitive. And the other things was the defend the point contracts. Defend this point X number of times or kill X number of players pushing the cart. It was just very annoying. I mean, they've patched it a couple of times now, but initially it was very painful to do the bonuses. No, on Lazarus it was like 30 times you had to do it, and even on a 6 stack we only managed to do it 7 times in about 10 rounds. Very frustrating to do. The other question I had was, why can't we do multiple contracts in them more? I'd love to do a class and a weapon contract at the same time as a map contract. We used to be able to do that in the past. I'm sure I'm not going crazy here, guys. Please let me know. But doing like a shotgun contract on Banana Bay, you could do both of them at the same time. But at the moment, you're kind of limited, and it's kind of frustrating when you've got, for example, a Mercenary Park contract and another contract, but you happen to be on Mercenary Park. You have to decide which one I'm going to do, and it's kind of, you get a bit repetitive. I suppose it makes it last longer, but it would have been nice to kind of bundle them up a little bit. But on that note, overall, they've been great. It's brought a lot of people back into the game who don't normally play pubs. I know a lot of my friends in the competitive scene don't normally play pubs. They play their MGE, they play mixes, they play their comp games, but pubs they steer clear of, and I'm kind of the same. I only really play it on stream and have some fun with friends, but actually with the contracts it's like, yeah, I want to try out these new maps, I want to do these contracts, so it's really good. Which makes me ask you, Valve, why don't you just do this all the time? Why not every 3 months just throw out a new campaign? I did a video ages back when initially the duck contracts came out. Do you remember the bonus ducks and all of that Erasmus? And I said that Valve could take TF2 and follow the blueprints set by CSGO with the operations they did. And I made this video, and people were kind of like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then it actually happened. But then they kind of just slowed down, and there have been some stuff in the game where you can, you buy these things, you do the contracts, you level up the item that the contracts are associated with. Why don't you just do this every 3 months, Valve? It can't be that hard to implement into the game. I mean, I'm not a coder. I don't know how hard it actually is, but surely every 3 months just throw something out there and just say, oh, this is the payload contracts, and people have to play payload maps to do their contracts or something like that. It will give a reason for people to come into the game that maybe they won't, normally just do by themselves. Onto the new weapons, and basically new weapons for the Pyro. you know, and the first one has to be the Dragon's Fury. It's fun, it's new, it's a totally different playstyle for the Pyro. And I think that's what this whole update was about. Give something other than the Pyro. It actually gives a different gameplay for a class that's so far been really one-dimensional. Yeah, up until this point, Pyro, basically WM1 or kind of Puff and Sting, basically revolved around ambushing people. And so the Dragon's Fury does follow that, but it's a different way of doing it. And I think the aim of this update has been to try and give something for the Pyro to do, and the different weapons are doing that. A lot of people say this is overpowered. The Dragon's Fury is overpowered. I think it only seems that way, ATM, because all of the Pyros on each team, sometimes we've had like 9v9 Pyros on servers, it's not been fun. In general, I think people would have died either way in most situations, regardless of the primary that was used. Okay, I think if people have been using the default flamethrower, they would have died in the same situation as when they died to a Dragon's Fury. It's just kind of, oh, it's a new weapon, it's killing me really quickly. I think in comp, it's not going to be used much. The recent Highlander Cup and ECF12 showed that a lot of Pyros just don't really want to use it. There's no reduced air blast, there's too much chaos. I'm not really sure. We can cover this in a future video when I talk to some Pyros, but really I don't think in Highlander it's used much. In 6s though, I have seen some people put great use of it. Some Pyro mains jumping in and causing a bit of havoc. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any teams out there in the future when it's allowed, if they operate a playstyle around it. And in MVM though, it was extremely OP. You could kill everything. You just destroy everything, get some heals, and you could basically replace a heavy. To the point it was actually nerfed in a recent patch. They took away one of the upgrades that you could get. There was also the thermal thruster. I think this is the most interesting and exciting one. Everyone wanted the jetpack for the Pyro. There's comp potential there for suicide waves. You know, normally people send in soldiers and demos to try and get a drop on the medic. You can also now jump in your Pyro using the jetpack. But in general, I think it's good for the maneuverability for the Pyro. Scout is fast, soldier can jump, demo can jump, the Pyro can now jetpack. It allows it kind of a different aspect, a different way to actually access areas and go for flank plays, you know. So it's a good addition for the Pyro, an option for him to use. And who knows, maybe in the future there could be some like jump maps with the Pyro. People do sentry jumps with the NG, and they do jump maps with NG. Maybe they can design some for Pyro. I don't know if there's any jump map aficionados out there who are thinking along the same lines. You also got the gas passer. The recharge is just a bit weird. It's a bit weird. I mean, the lack of a secondary really inhibits you, and you have to wait around for the gas passer to recharge. You can do more damage, but you're limited to just your primary. It's a support item, and it leaves you weaker. And maybe if we were working around it with your team, it could work. But I just don't feel, in general, it's going to be used too much. In MVM, it's quite overpowered because you can actually explode the robots with an upgrade. So you just throw it on them, do some damage, and boom. They explode. So it can be used there, but in general gameplay, I'm not sure how many people are actually going to use it. Finally, for the last one for the Pyro is the Hot Hand, which yeah. Then we got the Banana for the heavy. It's something different for the heavy. It's got that faster recharge, which I suppose is good if you don't have a medic. You can actually stay alive away from, you know, a combo scenario. You can spam it around for teammates if they need health packs, but it is small health packs. Don't think it's going to be used much compared to the rest of the lunchbox items. I still think the default sandwich is best in my opinion. Onto skins, and there's so many more skins. It's great to have so much variety in this game. TF2 has never been this colourful since they added unusuals into the game. It's really, really nice, and you can actually add them onto lots of different weapons now. There's so many different weapons you can have them on that before were limited to just default looks and stuff like that. So it's absolutely brilliant. I love it. I think it's a great way of TF2 really embracing the fact that they've got skins and covering everything rather than just specific weapons. Only downside is there's so many different wares, and the strangers are kind of difficult. It's hard to get exactly what you want. If you want a factory new factory new strange, it's going to cost you a bit of money to actually get that. The other thing, you obviously got the Dragon Slayer, but there's only one per person. There's only one per person when you finish the contract. You can acquire other ways through trading, but you are limited to only having one. So for people who aren't into the trading and don't have the kind of the funds to actually go out and get the other ones, it kind of leaves you limited to just picking one. And there's no strange for it, which is the big downside for me. I'd love to use these in game. Pretty much all of them I probably use on my classes, but there's no strange for them. So, you know, it's kind of a downside. I love having strangers. I love having stack locks in CSGO. I love counting the kills and the different things I do with my weapons, and the lack of that on such a beautiful skin is a massive downside, unfortunately. But with the new skins, you can now inspect everything, which is really good. It actually brings it in line with everything in the present age. Things like CSGO, again, we've made this comparison earlier in the video. It's updated it to what people expect from games now, and it didn't make sense that you could inspect some weapons. You can now inspect your Australian, which is great. You can actually look at all of your items in the game. Onto the balances, which I think, I could make an entire video just droning on about all these different balances. So I'm going to try and stick to the specific ones. Okay, we've got the Pyro, which is now, balanced. Valve has actually been working hard to make the Pyro not broken. Flame particles look a lot better. Air Blast feels a little bit weird. Sometimes it feels too strong, sometimes it feels too weak, sometimes it feels, where am I supposed to be aiming to get the optimum Air Blast here? I think people will feel more normal with it over time as more people use it, and it has been, over a week now. People have actually got to the point where I think they like it, but for me it's going to take a little bit of time getting used to. I don't play that much Pyro anymore, but I do think it is actually bringing Pyro into with the other classes more in line with this, actually functioning how it's supposed to function. The other things that I think are kind of not broken, but aren't going to be used very much anymore. You've got the gloves are running urgently, the GRU, and the eviction notice. They've been nerfed to shit, excuse my language, but they're just awful now. The fact that it reduces your max HP, it kind of brought the GRU back to something it was in the past. But back then, you could actually throw the sandwich down and pick it up as a medium health pack. So it was a very different environment for the heavy back then. Now it's just, on rollouts in Highlander and stuff, you're going to get to mid and you're going to have reduced HP. It just doesn't work. And there was obviously that bug with the overheal, which was kind of annoying to play against. Thankfully Valve patched that within a couple of days, but I can't see either of these weapons being used in comp anymore. I think people are going to go stick to the Fists of Steel, which also had a change, but it's a change that makes sense for me. With Spy, we've got the Ambassador and the Deadringer. I think the Ambi is close to useless now. It's just basically a worse version of the stock. The Deadringer also, I think, has been nerfed a lot, but it's probably what Valve initially intended for a class that is, supposedly a sneak-based class. It's something that's supposed to be sneaky and not outright DM based, so it's probably more in line with what they initially wanted. I could talk about this in a future video. I have plans of talking to some spy people and getting their views on the changes. Other weapons, you've got the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol. Is now super strong. You can almost out-heal the damage you do, or receive, against a heavy in a 1v1. It gives you a lot of HP, especially with that increased fire rate. Rescue Ranger now requires metal. Again, closer to what Valve probably initially wanted for the weapon. It was supposedly, you can move your sentry around. That's really strong. You could heal it from a distance, but it has to have some sort of requirement for that, and that is, the metal being used makes sense to me. As a medic main, the crossbow change for me is big. Healing's not effective, but building Uber is. So arrow building in 6s is no longer possible. It's a huge change for the 6s meta. It's something that I think was actually needed, because building Uber is something that competitive TF2 is revolved around. That is the central thing of what comp TF2 is. You have to count Ubers, you have to know how much Uber the enemy team has, and arrow building has, I don't know, maybe distorted that slightly. And so now there is possibility for building Uber, but it's not what it's going to be used much for anymore, I believe. But basically, those are the major ones. Those are the major changes. There's other things as well. I think they're pretty irrelevant unless I've missed anything major. For example, the reserve shooter is less annoying now. The Vitasaur has a nice little gimmick, which I think they probably weren't going to be used like they were in the past. But yeah, I think a lot of these balances have actually been really positive for the game. Overall, I think the update has been really good. I think Valve updated and patched the game 5 days in a row, which must be a record, at least in the past 5 or plus years or something like that. Maybe not since the beginning of the game have they done it that often. Myself, I played casual, not comp. I'm not just saying TF2, not because I played comp, in the evenings or MVM or anything like that. I played casual for hours at a time for 6 days in a row. That's the first time I've done that in a long time. It's probably mostly to do with the contracts and the fun with the lobby system. The new lobby system is amazing. It allows you to get in with your friends and join ad hoc in games. I think that's a big part of the reason for me to able to just jump in with my friends at any time, and I think that's part of the reason why I played it for so much. I think a lot of the balances were needed, they made sense, and the maps while not perfect, they've fit the theme and they've been fun to play on. And it's been something different. It's been a different experience. I haven't actually played any of them other than, Moss Rock in the past. The rest of them have all been a new experience for me, and I've enjoyed trying to find out all the little nooks and crannies on the map. Big question for this update, the Jungle Inferno update: was it worth the wait? It's kind of hard to quantify how good the update is with how long we waited. I think the best answer is we can't actually wait this long for another update. I don't think TF2's community would be happy, obviously, but I'm not sure if it will survive it that much. A lot of people have been quite disenchanted, disenfranchised, whatever you want to, what word you want to use, disappointed with how long this update has come to take out. People are already waiting for the next update, and it's kind of like we can't wait that long. We need more regular things. The contract thing, for example, that I suggested, or just some map packs, stuff like that. Just stuff to keep the community understanding that Valve has still an interest in TF2. There's some much needed things like comp matchmaking that need to bring TF2 into the current climate. The current system is horrible. I'm going to make a video of that in the future to talk about that more in detail, but it's just some ideas of things that Valve needs to maybe concentrate now. But if you're not too long didn't read of the video, the update has not been without its bugs and hitches, but it's been a big success in my mind. I think it's really been great fun, and it's brought a lot of people back. We had some impressive numbers for TF2 on the first couple of days of the update, and it actually makes me positive for Valve's ideas in the future. I'm hoping this is the beginning of something and not just kind of another update to them. I hope they're moving more in this direction. But thank you guys for watching. This video went on for much longer than I wanted it to, but I hope you enjoyed it regardless. And take care, and I'll see you next time.